Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, IELTS with Charles. Today we are continuing in our series of Coffee with Charles and indeed Teacher Harvey. Good morning, how are you today?
Morning, pleasure to be here. I'm feeling great.
Fantastic, well done. And today guys, we are challenging a rather difficult topic, and that is comparing the difference between collectivist and individualistic culture. Now that really is a difficult word to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
Individualistic. Yeah. I'm looking to reflect on this because many of my students have asked me to have a look at the differences in culture between Western and Eastern countries. Now, not exclusively, but normally, individualistic culture is often more common in Western countries, such as England, where we are from, and America. In contrast, collectivist culture is more commonly associated with Eastern cultures, such as China and indeed Vietnam, traditionally, but we will look at that a bit later. First of all, without further ado, Teacher Harvey, can you tell us a little bit about individualistic culture?
So, individualistic cultures tends to put more emphasis on the individual, on individual people, okay, and their exploits, their achievements, and of course, their own desires.
Fascinating, isn't it? Yeah. And it's not something we think about too much in day-to-day life, is it, really?
No, it's very much something that has become quite normal and ingrained in daily life for us.
Sure, yes. So, in contrast, in a more collectivist society, I've lived in Vietnam for 5 years now, people tend to value more importance on the community, on creating a strong bond, and indeed on furthering each other, as opposed to that kind of competitive spirit you almost always see in Western countries. People value on community, a sense of purpose and belonging to a larger family. Yeah. And I want us today to reflect on how this plays out in real life. Let's have a look at how it affects us in terms of work on a day-to-day basis and indeed in education. I would also like to have a think about family as well. Okay. Yeah, see how it reflects there.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to talk first of all about collectivist education system. You often find that students work together very harmoniously on group projects in Vietnam. Moreover, students really respect authority. You know, the teacher in Vietnam very much is respected, almost like a doctor in a Western country. And that I think is absolutely fascinating because it fosters this skill of teamwork, cooperation and cohesiveness. Yeah. How does that compare to individualistic culture in education?
Well, of course, there's nothing is black and white. There's all shades of grey. So in many more individualistic societies, such as England, there is still a strong emphasis on teamwork. However, there's perhaps more of an emphasis on developing one's individual passions, following your dreams. Critical thinking is incredibly important, and really trying to work to the best of your ability, which is what works best for you. Yes. For example, this often results in people feeling a little bit more comfortable to perhaps follow their passions.
That's good. Okay. Lots of extracurricular activities as well.
Yes, absolutely. Rather than maybe feeling, I guess, pressure to do simply what they are best at, rather than what they are really, truly passionate about.
Yes. Are there any negatives to that?
Perhaps the less focus on teamwork can make people feel perhaps somewhat isolated, left out at times. Yes.
Especially for people that don't work so well in that kind of individual, kind of wanting to push themselves. Some people are just more relaxed, you know?
Absolutely.
And they should be allowed to be encouraged as well, but often they are left behind in the education system.
I think very often the best work comes from collaborative effort, from really working as a team. Yeah. To build your ideas on your own is fantastic, but even better is to work as a team and really bounce ideas off each other.
Sure, yeah, it's fascinating. I would as well just like to reflect for a minute on the difference in cultures about family. As you know, I've been here for a long time, and I think a great example is Christmas. In the UK, when we celebrate Christmas, I think you will agree, we normally celebrate with our immediate and close family. So for us, we might have our mother and father, and indeed any brothers or sisters, and husband and wife in the future. In Vietnam, it's very much all of the big family coming together. I can vividly remember when I met my family in Vietnam. The first time I met them, there was about 30 or 40 people that came for dinner that night, you know? Whereas in Western, it would be a much smaller group. And this is that emphasis on family bond, you know, especially during the Lunar New Year, where everybody comes together and creates unforgettable memories.
Yes, absolutely. For us, there's less of a focus on the whole extended family.
Yes.
Which, of course, I love to go and visit my cousins and things like that, but that's not so much the whole focus. For me, the focus is my immediate family.
Sure.
Okay, my nearest and dearest. But then I think that's something perhaps that individualistic cultures such as England and America and collectivist cultures have in common, that in the modern time, in a globalized world, many people are forced to move to the big city in search of work, employment, prestigious companies where they can earn a higher salary and support their families.
Yes.
Which therefore I think really emphasizes the importance of holidays such as Tet holiday and Christmas.
Where you come together.
Exactly. And you can really spend that good quality time with your beloved family, whether or not it's the extended or individual.
If I may challenge the notion as well, just as we bring the video to a draw, one thing that's fascinating about Vietnam is we label it a collectivist country. However, Harvey, things are changing, especially in the cities. You know, people are choosing not to live with grandparents, great-grandparents at home, but instead choosing to live with nuclear families, you know, husband, wife, and babies. Yeah, and I think this is fascinating to look at the difference between the countryside, the rural area, and the urban areas. And I'm fascinated to know what will happen in the future as time progresses, how the country changes. Will it keep its traditions and its humble heritage as a collectivist country, or indeed bow to the Western influences and become an individualistic country? So who knows what happens in the future?
Yes, absolutely. I think importantly, it's very important to strike a balance there. I think, of course, there are both benefits and disadvantages, drawbacks to both sides. For example, the desire to live with one's family, one's immediate family, makes sense. It can be more intimate and more personal. However, we owe our parents for raising us and looking after us, so nonetheless, we must make sure that they are taken care of.
Absolutely, yes.
So, for example, in many Western countries, maybe people think that we put our parents in a home straight away, or we move to university as soon as possible. But for example, when I moved out, I still keep very close connection with my mum, and we speak every day, and when the time comes, I will be there for her.
Sure. Fascinating. I've thoroughly enjoyed that conversation, and I think we've outlined many of the interesting things. Don't get me wrong, Westerners still love their family, but just not quite to the same everyday intense degree as those in Eastern cultures. Fascinating. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. These concepts are quite complex. They're difficult to get your head around, and indeed, they're not clear-cut. But I hope that gave you a little bit of an insight into the differences between Western and Eastern culture. For me now, I've lived in Vietnam for 5 years, Harvey for around 5 months, and we seem to be leaning towards loving Eastern culture more. Thank you as always for joining. Please hit subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment with any thoughts that you might have about this fascinating topic. And of course, hit like. See you all next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.